Well, hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I want to talk about the breaking news coming out of Germany, where Syrian President al-Jolani is meeting German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and the deal that they seem to have reached regarding the repatriation of Syrian refugees from Germany to Syria. So without further ado, let's get into it. I've come across some posts on X as well as some newspaper articles which I'm going to insert here regarding the deal between the alleged deal reached between Merz and Syrian President al-Jolani. So I've got one here from Politico which says Merz wants majority of Syrians out of Germany. The German Chancellor made restricting migration a central campaign issue when he ran for office in 2025. Berlin. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said most Syrians should go back to their homeland following a controversial meeting with the country's President Ahmed al-Sharaa. In the next 3 years, around 80% of Syrians currently living in Germany should return to their home country, Merz said at a joint press conference with the Syrian leader in Berlin on Monday. But certain groups, including doctors and nurses, could stay, according to the Chancellor. That statement there is actually quite telling because realistically, if you look at what Syria has gone through, then ideally the doctors and nurses would be the ones that you would want to go back home immediately if you had Syria's interests at hand. Because doctors and nurses would play a critical role in looking after the malnourished, the downtrodden, and those that have borne the brunt of the civil war and the sanctions that were heaped on them. However, Germany, also in some sort of a crisis regarding skilled labor, has now decided to offer doctors and nurses, and I suspect a few others, the right to remain within Germany. So, let's at the outset understand that this is not a humanitarian gesture. This is Germany undoing the disastrous policies that Merkel had implemented when she opened the door to Syrian refugees coming in, which saw lots of issues then result within Germany in terms of crime and a fraction within German society. Nevertheless, let's go on. The civil war is over and there is now in principle a perspective for returning to Syria, and we want to make that possible together, Merz said. Millions of Syrians fled the civil war that began in 2011, with many arriving in Germany during 2015-2016 refugee crisis. By the end of 2024, around 1.23 million people of Syrian origin were registered in Germany. And that's those that were registered and are known and accounted for. We don't know how many others have not been registered but are still floating around within the system. Merz made restricting migration a central campaign issue when he ran for office in 2025 and is now seeking cooperation from Damascus to facilitate the return of Syrians without a legal right to stay in Germany. The Chancellor claims the initiative will help create conditions for economic growth in Syria and support its reconstruction efforts. So, while Merz is using this as an example to show his benevolence, let's call a spade a spade. Sending everybody back to Syria except those that are intrinsic to the rebuilding of the country doesn't help with creating conditions for economic growth in Syria and support its reconstruction efforts. Because I would have really thought that doctors, nurses, and those other skilled professionals that the Germans want to hold on to would be intrinsic to the rebuilding of Syria and Syrian society. So again, I have no problem with the Germans wanting to send people back, and that's their right. But be honest about your intentions. Don't try and make it seem as if you're doing Syria a favor by repatriating people, but picking and choosing who of Syrian descent you wish to repatriate. Because keeping the doctors and the nurses back is beneficial to Germany and harmful to Syria. So let's bear that in mind. Opponents of Syrian leader however, criticized the German government for rolling out the red carpet for al-Sharaa, who was previously known under the pseudonym Abu Muhammad al-Jolani. The United States had previously offered a $10 million reward for his arrest until rescinding it in December 2024. Here's another thing. Jolani was a prominent member of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, that whole nexus in that region. And, he's been linked to murders, beheadings, no respect for human life. Erdogan held on to him, kept him safe, bided his time so that when Bashar was to be ousted, Erdogan could unleash Jolani and his band of merry men on Syria. And that is what he has done. Make no mistake, there will be mass oppression of the Christians in Syria. There will be mass oppression of the Druze in Syria. Jolani he's had a haircut, trimmed his beard and put on a Hugo Boss suit. That's all he's done. He swapped his military fatigue and his jihadi attire for Western attire to make himself more palatable to the Western narrative. Other than that, there's nothing that has changed. He's still the same man, the same mass murderer. However, he's been treated like royalty. Trump welcomed him into the Oval Office. He's been given the red carpet here in Syria, in Germany. So, I'm firmly of the belief that if Idi Amin was alive today, he would probably be welcomed back into the world community. The same for Saddam Hussein and the same for Muammar Gaddafi, because you are only as good as you can be used, thrown away, and if you are fortunate enough to outlast your status as a pariah, the odds are you could be brought back in from the cold, as you see with Jolani. So, here's a guy that has been responsible for the civil war in Syria, helping get out the oil, helping restrict the wheat to the other parts of Syria where people were starving. And today, he is the president and the de facto ruler of Syria. I honestly now believe that anything is possible. I honestly now believe anything is possible. If this man can be treated with such pomp and ceremony, anything is possible. I've also got a few posts from X regarding this that I will put up because it's actually, as you can imagine, it's trending on X. There's an article here from DW, Germany News. Merz and Syrian president talk, refugee returns. So, Merz seems to be trying to get his house in order. And I think the Germans are now starting to develop more of an autonomous foreign policy. I think they're trying to break free. Well, they seem to be breaking free of the American shackles that they've had for a long time. And Germany seems to be taking the lead. But let's not forget, this was what the United States had said to the Germans. Don't forget, when the senior American NATO person in Europe made a speech a while ago last year, he did say Germany needs to take on more responsibility. And Germany needs to get used to basically being the head of NATO. And this is what you're going to see happening. But you're going to find pushback from France. 100% you're going to find pushback from France. And the British are not going to be too happy either. They will align on a lot of policies, including Ukraine. But supremacy and dominance within the European continent, there's going to always be that rivalry. So we're going to keep a close eye on this and we're going to update you accordingly. I want to thank you for spending time with us and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please remember to like, share and subscribe as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.